You can have the best math formula, and it was a great math formula, but unless you communicate it or get the people that are going to use it to find value and arguably be part of the conversation, then it's good in theory only, but it doesn't help the real world.
Welcome to the AI Space Podcast, where we strive to encourage and empower AI founders, innovators, technologists, startups, and businesses to drive innovation and scale their initiatives with game-changing insights. I'm your host, Sanjay Kalluvilayil, founder and CEO of Stonehaas Advisors, a consultancy dedicated to helping AI leaders struggling with cash flows to create value and maximize valuations to fund growth, successful capital raises, and strategic exits. We're thrilled to have Ari Kaplan, head of Evangelism from Databricks. As a leading influencer in AI and data analytics, Kaplan plays a crucial role in promoting Databricks' data intelligence platform and Lakehouse architecture. Most interesting is that Ari is known as the real Moneyball guy due to his pioneering work in sports analytics, particularly in baseball. His analytical innovations partly inspired the popular 2011 film Moneyball, starring Brad Pitt. Now, with revenues over $2.1 billion, Databricks is known for building the AI and data intelligence platform, developing the Lakehouse technology, which merges traditional data warehouses with machine learning and unstructured data in data lakes. It's also involved in open source platforms like Apache Spark, MLflow, and Delta Lake, which receive over 1 billion annual downloads. So in terms of agenda, we're going to talk about, as always, technology architecture, integrating AI into your technology stack, business scaling, cost-effective strategies to grow your business, ethical and responsible AI, balancing innovation with accountability, AI democratization, empowering businesses and unique perspectives, and finally, some encouragement. Ari's going to give us some insights, thoughts, and words of encouragement from his years' experience and being in the trenches of AI. So, Ari, here on the AI Space Podcast, we highlight game-changing insights that drive innovation and scale business initiatives. What do you see as the hottest trends in AI for 2025?
Well, first of all, Sanjay, audience, thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here and super excited times. And there's so much, the opening question, what are some of the hot topics? Gen AI took the world by storm. People at first looked at it as like an LLM. And that was about 2.5 years ago. How do you create chatbots? But in the last couple of years, things have progressed like incredible. On one hand, the models, people that are making these open or large proprietary models are progressing seemingly every week. But I would say like some of the hottest things are, one is, how do you take AI and merge it with business intelligence so you could just talk to your data, talk to your own company data that's fully governed, just with a conversation. So that is something that has been tried for forever, but now that's a reality. That's number one. And the number two are like the concept of agentic systems, where you have lots of like very purposeful AI agents, maybe one predicting weather, one predicting stock market, one that's good at summarizing, one that's good at predicting something, and you string them together, weave them together to be able to make more complex, insights and actually take action on it. Um, so those are like, and there's a whole lot more, but those are some of the hot topics. Travel all over the world, and that's what I think people are all talking about now.
Awesome. So what insights have you seen in the last year that founders and businesses are using to scale up their businesses?
Yeah, so it pretty much, there's this AI, almost like a hype of Gen AI. Every executive, every founder kind of running saying, we need AI, but wait, what is AI? And now, in the conversations, a lot of people, are still asking, what are the use cases we could do to make our businesses more efficient, effective, connect with customers better? But really, people are still like bouncing back almost to that they need good data underneath, since the better quality data and the more variety of data kind of implies that the AI would be better. And when I say AI, just since we're near the start of the podcast, the word AI is like a concept to many, and it means like 50 things to 50 people. So the current state of Gen AI, is just that, like the chatbots. How do you summarize information? How do you make net new content? That's kind of generative AI. How do you make images, videos? But there's traditional AI, which is still the vast majority of production use cases. That's like, how do you predict something in the future based on the past? How do you predict the price of a stock, or how should we put inventory in all of our 7-Eleven so we don't get out of stock, or we don't have too much stock and have to throw out the perishable foods? That's predictive analytics. And then there's like, even traditional like data science, math formulas, simulations, things like that. So I just wanted to kind of level set, uh, like the broad spectrum of AI. And still today, the people are trying to get their data foundation. Then they're trying most of the time to get traditional machine learning, traditional AI. And what's the exciting part is LLMs and Gen AI, since that is, it's not fully mature, it's not fully productionalized in every company yet, but it is taking off super hot.
Hey folks, exciting news. DataCamp, one of the world's top AI and data science learning platforms, is exploring a partnership with the AI Space podcast. We not only bring you game-changing insights, we now offer you training and certifications that can truly level up your career and life path. So whether if you're an individual seeking to level up and secure a new role in AI, a founder or technologist seeking to scale your AI expertise and architecture, or an enterprise leveling up your team for upcoming AI initiatives, DataCamp delivers unique user experiences so that you can learn data and AI through interactive hands-on coding from home or anywhere. Follow career and skill tracks that take you from beginner to job ready, whether you want to be a data analyst, data engineer, AI engineer, Python developer, or more. You'll work on real-world projects and build a portfolio that stands out. You can also earn certifications recognized by leading companies like Databricks, Microsoft, AWS, and more. DataCamp's newest track, Developing AI Applications, is live. You'll master prompt engineering, chatbots, APIs, agents, end-to-end apps, and platforms. You'll build with ethical AI to ensure data privacy, security, trust, and quality. Also, if you're a developer trying to add AI to your tech stack, check out their Associate AI Engineer for Developers track as well. Make sure to use the affiliate links in the episode description below to sign up for the Data Camp and start building your AI advantage today. That's great. I think we're going to dive much deeper into those concepts. So thanks for those clarifications. Well, Ari, to start off, I'm actually quite humble. What was about the AI Space podcast that resonated with you? That hey, we're only a couple of months old, like 3 months into it, and this is our 11th episode. To have someone from Databricks on here is amazing. So just what resonated with you to show up on this episode? On this episode?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, I love the title, AI Space. I went to Caltech, the California Institute of Technology, and they run Jet Propulsion Lab, the unmanned portion of NASA. So love the title Space. And then I think you said some other guests that you had on, and um, and just a psychological point is, even though the world's very data and AI driven, there's still that human element. So just seeing there are other people that seem very interesting attracted me. And then I went and looked at YouTube, didn't even look at all the platforms, and saw you are getting really good viewership. So compared to other podcasts. So thanks to Mark, the producer, and everyone else, just social media. So those are the things that attracted. But I'm glad to be number 11, and hope build that.
Yeah, no, we've had some really. It seems like we're stair stepping in terms of the level of our guests, and it seems like we just really stair stepped it. Um, you know, Before we continue, I want to invite everyone to follow Ari Kaplan, like, comment, subscribe to the AI Space podcast, because that helps us grow the show to have a more impressive guests like Ari. First of all, I want to give thanks to all our subscribers, all the people that have viewed. We're approaching 40K, 50K views. When people subscribe, so if you subscribe right now, make sure you hit the notifications. it helps us grow to get amazing guests like Ari. So thanks to our previous guests too that have really what we're trying. I think you made a good point. There's a lot of AI podcasts. People saying you can just generate have an AI, put an AI twin out there and generate a podcast, right? But I want to talk to the people that are in the trenches, building out and the AI space, right? So there should be, how do we broaden this into a wider tent, and who are actually building this in the trenches, have real life lessons, real practical things to help others in this space, right? So, I think that's critical for us to keep growing.
Yeah, and one thing is like that you brought up a fun point. Notebook LM, which is made by Google, has this opportunity where you can upload anything and say make a podcast out of it, and they have synthetic male and female voices. And of course, it's not as good as you, but it's pretty wild. Where like I took co-authored a couple of books. I took Data Intelligence Platform for Dummies and say do a podcast on it, and it was really good. I'm doing research on this human rights investigation for missing prisoners of war. So I uploaded tons of documents and just say summarize. What did my partner contribute? And it was pretty poetic for some LLM. She was practically crying and was like, I want this part of my obituary based on just uploading and using Gen AI.
Yeah, well, I'm sure those models, the way they do, I'm familiar with all those. I've been tempted to use some of those, but I'm sure they're way more polished than I am. So, but yeah, at least I'm hopefully, the quality of the questions that I bring, brings about some differentiation. So, could you
100.
tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got here? What led you onto this foray into AI and your path into Databricks?
Yeah. So AI really stemmed as a little kid when I was, a little background on me. When I was 7 years old, I was writing software programs and I even sold my first program at 7, got hired to consult with ETS that makes the SAT and AP tests at age 13. And that's really when started getting into, I guess you would call it AI, but being able to automate um, repetitive, boring, time-consuming tasks. When I was in, I think 7th or 8th grade, I wrote this program that would write new Beatles lyrics based on, prior Beatles lyrics. And it was not really like real LLM. It was more just like a bunch of complex if then else type statements. But I was super interested in, what can computers automatically generate? And so that was just fascination at a young age, going to Caltech, post Caltech, just like naturally curious of all, like, the latest, tech geek, what's the latest and greatest in everything. And then, traditional machine learning was great prior to Databricks. Was with a company called Data Robot that created the space of automating machine learning. And that's when like my mind was like, wow, you can have a computer write machine learning models, write Python code, try different hyperparameters, which are things data scientists do all day and night. And instead of having a human, I would say in addition to having a human doing tons of work, the AI, if you want to call it that, would save like 80-90% of the data scientists' work. And people at first were like, "Will this automate my job away?" But what they realized is it automated level 1 data scientist away, and everyone got the ability to level up um, the boring, repetitive part. So that was my history, and then I joined Databricks. It was premier data company. They created the Lakehouse. You had mentioned in the introduction some open source. So like the creators of Spark, billions downloads is incredible. ML Flow, Delta Lake. These are open source technology that helps data scale to tens of trillions of records and super fast, super inexpensive, like 80-90% less expensive in many cases, and it scales up, many times. So huge ROI. And I'm like, I'm sold, and it makes it simple. So I joined Databricks, and within a year was when Sam Altman and team came up with LLMs. So after I had joined, I ended up being at the right place in the right time, since now every company at the board level on down, the investors, if they're a public company, they're like, you need to get on AI, even if they don't have a strategy yet. But that helped Databricks. More use cases. Companies even they need the good data underneath. And that's really where the bread and butter of Databricks is. It's like the underlying Lakehouse. It's like the place that you put structured and unstructured data in one place. And, there's a couple options out there, but Databricks now is like hockey sticking up, uh, growing 60% ish per year. So that's kind of how I joined. And then my role is the title is kind of funny, but it's popular around tech firms. It's the head of Evangelism. So that's basically talking with you, Sanjay, and others, spreading the word at conferences, talking to customers, partners of everything data and AI. So not in the sales perspective, but just trying to educate people. And if it's our conference, what more applicable hands-on techie. And if it's outside conferences, conceptually, what is a lake house? And now this new data intelligence platform, which hopefully we'll cover a little bit this podcast too.
Yeah, no, thanks for the clarification for head of evangelism. On episode 9, we had Julian Simone from RC.ai, former Hugging Face, and we kind of deep dove into that on the context of the good news around AI. And I'm sure you want to also spread what's real and what's not real in terms of AI. There's a lot of hype out there, right? So in terms of Databricks, I understand that Databricks, started, the founders were involved with Apache Spark, which is open source. They founded Databricks. It looks like it's around data science. Companies have a plethora of data, right? And it's untapped, and they want to make better decisions, better planning. You had mentioned earlier in terms of inventory, other types of things. So, at some point, only humans can only process so much, and then you get to statistical models and tools that can do some of the stuff, Tableau and some of the visualization type tools, and you have like SPSS and SAS for the statistical models, et cetera, right? But then it gets even more complex. The volume of data gets much more. You got your feedback on your social media, for sentiment analysis, all this types of stuff. So at some point, the volume of data is too much. You have, as you mentioned, structured data and unstructured data. Structured data has the labels, and that goes through a refining process, which is kind of manually intensive, right? And those are put in data warehouses. Your data lakehouse is really for the unstructured data. And that's where you get into machine learning. So we talked about AI and, artificial intelligence. It started off, can we use computers and machines to analyze patterns, reason, make predictions, make decisions similar to human beings, right? So then you get to machine learning, which is analyzing patterns, the large volume of data to make predictions, right? And now it looks like you're evolving to a data intelligence platform. So maybe talk to us, what are some of your target segments, your use cases, or, validate some of the things I just spoke about, or, say, hey, you're wrong there.
Yeah, no, you did a great history lesson. There's a huge challenge in the industry where you would have the structured data warehouse, numbers, columns. Like I see Texas A&M behind you. Who are students? How much are they paying? What year did they come in? Kind of like a list of sales. What do we sell in our campus bookstore? That's data warehouse. That's structured. And then the data lake was unstructured data. So social media, videos, Word docs, PDFs, PowerPoints. Um, the first one, data warehouse, is like SQL. You're selecting very structured information. But when you talk about unstructured information, you can't really traditionally run SQL against it. You can't say select every video of Curb Your Enthusiasm where they use the word food in it. You can't run a query. You have to use some form of tagging or video analysis through AI. Also, you would have one governance tool, one username and password for each of these, and then you add in. You mentioned Power BI or Tableau. Now you have 4 systems, different governance, different everything. And you want one unified system. You want to reduce silos. So when you ask a question, like which Curb Your Enthusiasm episode made the most money where he said food. You're looking at data that's structured, what the money making or viewership was, and unstructured. So that's the Lakehouse. It's a play on the word data warehouse and data lake. It's a term the Databricks founders came up with, but they chose not to copyright it since you want to make it. And big thinking business, you want to make a market and then be the company that leads the market. So they came up with Lakehouse, and it went from like nobody using it, actually people saying, why would we need that at the beginning, to now over 80% of companies have our Lakehouse or a different Lakehouse. There are a number of vendors out there now, 80%. So that's kind of like, given. So the data intelligence platform came up a little over a year ago, which is, how do you leverage all this new Gen AI stuff to get more intelligence out of the data that you have? So data intelligence platform, it's a platform, largely how do you search your data? I was talking with the Dallas Fort Worth Airport head of data. They have over 1 million with an M, a million columns or like, types of data variables, also all their tables. And so having a human, they have people, or they had people 52 definitions a day. They said it was going to take 17 years to have humans document it all. So that's one example of a data intelligence platform. How do you search for your data, uh, syntactically, semantically? So you could just say, I want to know my sales in Texas. And it knows, or like the Dallas region, and it knows what the Dallas region is based on your company's data. So searching data, automatically tagging those million rows of what data contains, a million columns, what data is in each column, in each table. So semantic search is awesome, but then data intelligence is much more than that. You now have the ability for software developers when they're doing copilots, which is a common thing now, write Python, write SQL. It knows your data structure. It knows what columns exist better than just like a flat search. So like one quick example, you are a company, a large company, you may have 50 columns that represent sales of this jacket. Could be called sales underscore 613, sales underscore NE, and like people don't really know what that is. So being able to just semantically have not software developers do their programs more accurately on the data, to have external, chatbots that don't hallucinate as much as they usually do. Um, and then the other aspects everywhere there's a data worker is being affected by data intelligence platforms. So data engineering, how do you load data and merge, transform data? So if you have one data source that has someone's address and another data source for address, and one says APT for apartment, another spells out apartment, are they the same address? So AI is helping with the data engineering. Data management is a job where people are like pulling levers, turning dials to get the right file size to optimize like workloads. And now AI is automatically like doing the clustering of data behind the scenes. So you're automatically saving money. So that's what a data intelligence platform is. It just brings more intelligence to everything and democratizes. So technical people are more technical, and non-technical people could make a Tableau dashboard without having to go through their Tableau department and wait a month.
Yeah, no, and then also I think you made a good point too, especially when you do structure data, you end up siloing the data, right? So you have everything, if everything in the lake house, and that you can run queries and analyze the data. But if you start structuring right, then you put into a warehouse and silo, then you take another section of data and put all this right, and you introduce a complexity, and then how do you access the right information, all those types of things. So I think those are things that we can, talk about as we move forward in the technology space. But the interesting question I think most people are wanting to hear about is this whole Moneyball story. Maybe you can tell us a little about the history of that and how that came about.
Yeah, well, Moneyball was a book and then a movie about how data and analytics, helped change the industry of baseball. So in addition to making gut-driven decisions, like I think this player looks good, it's also data-driven. So it came about when I was an undergrad at Caltech. I got what's called a SURF, a Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship, to study and quantify what was in my gut, which was the players. Some players I thought were great had bad stats like earned run average, saves, win losses, batting average, and vice versa. Like some bad players would have good stats, some good players would have bad stats. A lot of them were accurate, and everyone was complaining. I grew up in New Jersey. Everyone was like, "This player sucks," but he has good stats. So I just didn't want to complain. I wanted to do something. So came up with research, came up with some terms that are still around, like reliever effectiveness, save value, or now cross sports, the letter X. Whenever you see the X, like expected goals or expected wins, was what I came up with during that the research fellowship. And then it got in the news. Uh, I'm talking a lot now, but I was able to talk even more succinctly when I was a kid. And so they put me on television and newspaper and so on. And the owner of the Dodgers, I'm sorry, the general manager of the Dodgers saw me in the newspaper, said, "You know what? I'm not sure if this could help, but it looks like the student's on the right path." And he called me up at my home and invited me up. Fred Clare, I'm still good friends with him. He was the GM when they won the World Series in '88. And even though they won the World Series, he still wanted to improve and was humble enough to, say that he doesn't know everything and might might be able to get the insight. So that got my foot in the door. He welcomed me in, got to work with Oral Hershiser, Kirk Gibson. If you're listeners and know those names, they're like legends, World Series MVP, Hall of Fame type players. Eddie Murray, I should add, and Rod Carew, like all sorts of great players. And that this is kind of a lesson for people listening is you can have the best math formula, and it was a great math formula, but unless you communicate it or get the people that are going to use it to find value and arguably be part of the conversation, then it's good in theory only, but it doesn't help the real world. So I was real uh, sure to involve players and say, does this make sense? Am I on the right track? Is there anything you would add, take away? Um, and, some of the players really loved it since they would leave with the bases loaded and the next pitcher would come in and allow all his runs to score and didn't think that was fair. Um, or if the lead pitcher would come in with the bases loaded, strike out the side and not get any credit beyond the strikeout part. So they loved it, and that's a good lesson carrying forward. And then maybe in 20 seconds to fast forward in the sports, had to reinvent myself every couple of years since the ideas you get, if they're good, they would spread around. So created the first electronic scouting report. So scouts that assess the quality and write text is captured electronically. And yes, we would do text analysis back in the 1990s, which is not the same approach of LLM, but the same idea. What words did scouts use if they included in a report that indicated future success? But then ended up creating the Chicago Cubs analytics department, doing major league scouting, helping with players, coaching analytically Kerry Wood, who's a famous pitcher, and many others. Um, just holding a lot of exciting roles in Major League Baseball. And then I worked with Formula One and McLaren, helping with their race strategy team for a couple of years, traveling around the world to different events there. And then with Databricks, we're like every industry out there, financial, healthcare, public sector, education, utilities. But we do have a great presence among sports. And famously, the Texas Rangers 2 seasons ago won the World Series, but we were with them along the whole journey from spring training to the championship. And they were talking, doing videos for us, testimonials, all the way from like the very beginning of using Databricks to when they won the World Series, and what having a better access to data and better ability to understand the data that they're collecting, how that helped them get good players that ended up helping them win.
No, that's an amazing story. Wow, that's I mean, I didn't realize even beyond baseball, racing, etc. So, how did you ever interact on the whole Moneyball movie and with Brad Pitt, etc.? Maybe tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, Brad Pitt's, it's kind of funny since just now starting to see the trailer for F1. So um I'm not saying he's basing it like on my life, but it's just funny. I did sports analytics, and then there's Moneyball. Then I do Formula One analytics. Now I'm gonna, and he was at the same race when I was a couple races filming when I was there. So we joked that he's going to do like a Databricks movie next. But yeah, no, the movie Moneyball was great. They uh, asked, they reached out to me actually when I was with the Cubs, so I couldn't really do it full time, but they wanted to base the Jonah Hill character partly on the experiences that I had. So it was super exciting. I love the movie, and I also love how so many people just keep coming up to me saying how that inspired them to either work in sports. I teach sports analytics on the side with SMWW, and about 50 of my former students end up working in the game or in non-sports. Like I get asked to speak, at all different events. Supercell make video games, League of Legends. I'm sorry, Clash of Clans, Clash Royale. Ask me to speak on Moneyball type topics. Coney Elevators wants me to speak on uh, Moneyball, since they all an oil dry public company had a Moneyball theme. They're energy, oil, and derivatives, and they approached a Moneyball theme. Um, and so it's inspiring to like every single industry.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it's also important to remember, underlying all that was statistics, right? So I'm obviously probably very good at statistics, understanding patterns, etc. And especially for our young people out there that are trying to figure out AI and data science and statistics, all this stuff. It's not. Don't do it just for the AI sake. Don't AI is find something that you're passionate about, that's fun, that's cool, that you can actually make an impact, and use AI and statistics and everything to solve that. Because people think when people say, "I'll never use this math again in life," well, actually, if you want to make a future for yourself, you have to learn these things if you want to go beyond a basic level of life. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. The job situation. What will AI automate or not is fascinating one. That's the one I proactively asked as many people around the world and come up with great insights in the World Economic Forum. Um, you know, just in January came out with a study. What are the most important skills to have? And yeah, data and AI, even though a lot of it's being automated, is still the number one outlook going through the year 2030. Cybersecurity still has a ton of jobs. And yes, the advanced algorithms will be automated largely by AI, but it's still a very uh, human growth sector. Data entry, bank tellers, those are like the bottom. Those are getting automated. Highway, toll takers, getting more automated. But you kind of hit it on the head with, AI is both software, but it's also math and statistics. And people sometimes don't realize that there's the LLM part of it, prompt engineering, RAG, retrieval augmented generation. How do you like tune and create models? That's one area, but the math behind it, probability, like you get a model, you still need people that understand math and people that understand business to say, is this model good enough that I can use it in real life? So there's a saying, um, No model's perfect, but some are better than others. It's still up to humans to decide in the business, this model is now good enough, I'm going to use it, or it's not good enough, keep iterating on it. And that requires probability, statistics, that I think will always be arguably even more valuable. It will always be definitely valuable.
Yeah, I mean, what people don't realize when you talk about generative AI or LLMs, it's based on probabilities, trying to guess the or predict the next sequence of words, right? So if I say the cat is, then based on probabilities, most people will probably say the cat is black, right? And so, but in terms of the context, that's where context and where you need some a little more training, or the human type situation. The cat is up the tree, or the cat is an animal, or the cat is not a dog. So there's different, depending on the context, right? So people don't understand, and since it is probabilities, there's a lot of factors that go into that. You have to quality check what's being produced by the AI. So in terms of there's some big announcements that have come out. I know there's some announcements of Databricks and SAP, Palantir. Can you give us some elucidate on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, Databricks is like a partner first company. I've been at a lot of companies and I've seen partnerships where it's a logo on a website and that's kind of it. But, we have partner marketplace. So from within the product, you can get different data sets to pull in. You can get different applications. System integrators, we rely on them to help do the implementation. But yeah, in the past couple of weeks, made a couple of really huge announcements. SAP is extremely large company, like in the application space. Think like ERP, CRM, like HR type of thing. They've been around for decades. I was in the past president of the Worldwide Oracle User Group for 6 years, and SAP was Oracle's biggest partner. So think large enterprise companies, and we announced this major, uh, not just on paper deal, but coming up with, actual, new products. SAP Databricks, the business data cloud, for example. And what that does is you have SAP data, like what are all your finances of your company, things like that. And if you want to do AI or machine learning on your SAP data, like Databricks does the compute and SAP has the data. So your companies will be able to talk to SAP data much more easily than they were in the past. And then the other exciting part of that is, uh, you know, what we were talking about earlier is the more types of data you have, the more types of insights you can get. So imagine now if you can take your SAP data and merge it with traffic data or social media feeds or your Salesforce or your company's Slack, you can now do AI insights on not just SAP data where SAP was, but on like whatever your data umbrella is. So that's super exciting, and we're going GA on some cloud platforms. Starting was it March? Starting next month.
Yeah, we're gonna also get into the Palantir one. I think for those who are not familiar with SAP, it's been around for a long time. Enterprise resource planning. So if you have, as your company gets larger, right, you have to have customer information, your own people information, resources. There's different modules, like you say, HR, finance, connection to your CRM, all these types of things. And there's a lot of internal data. And like you said, the beauty of it is combining with external data, which may be feedback on your customer website, comments on social media, other things to have a richer analysis and synthesis of information to make better predictions and how you can meet your customer needs and scale your company, right? No, that's great. And then in terms of, Palantir, what can you share with us?
Yeah, well, that announcement, I'm recording was made yesterday, so still coming up to speed. But Palantir is a well-known public company. They're known for like having what's called an ontology system. So they're like military grade security of like your data and your documents. and everything that a company might hold. So, like the Department of Defense of many countries leverage them. So, think if you want to protect and govern your insights, that's Palantir is one of the leaders, and then Databricks has something called Unity Catalog. Technically, we open sourced it last year, but Unity Catalog is like the Databricks capability to not just govern all your data, but like tag your data, add like metadata tags so you could search your data more clearly. Transparency and lineage are super important in the world of AI. So, and that's what Unity Catalog helps with. And what I mean by that is if you ask a question, what's the latest, greatest on some subject, you want to be able to know, is the underlying data uh, based 5 years old? Is it 5 months old? Or is the data from just today? That's what lineage is. What is the source of all your data, which is so crucial in Gen AI, where you ask a question, you're doing a research project, you want to know what are the sources of data, you can click on links, and that's what Unity Catalog helps with the lineage of all your data science algorithms, like what is the source of that, all your models, your notebooks, which are like the snippets of code that you write. So Unity Catalog, Databricks, and the Palantir ontology system, it's like the best of both worlds.
No, that's great. I think one of the challenges. It seems like that's kind of like similar to the concept of provenance in blockchain and supply chain in terms of like when you get your coffee beans, right? It was sourced here and it went through these ports. So by the time it got to your local coffee shop, right? So in terms of data, anyone who's worked with data, when data is input, garbage in, garbage out, right? You can get first name, last name. You can get a combination. The phone numbers don't have hyphens. Sometimes some fields are missing. There's inconsistency in data based on who input the data, right? And so if that's why you have to get to structured data. There's before that, there's some cleansing and making sure that it's consolidated and they're standardized and all these different types of things. And so, like you said, is the data 5 months old, 5 years old because somebody could have overwritten the data? Was there a change made? That type of stuff. So that's interesting to see that what's happening. So in terms of technology, right? Um, what for the tech wizards out there that's trying to craft their AI empires, maybe what cutting edge tools and frameworks are essential for building a bulletproof AI ML architecture and stack? How can they build it something that's practical and scalable, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. So, uh, you know, it, there's like a whole stack starting with like the data. So you want to have some platform where you could ingest multiple sources of data, and there's an idea of getting like the minimal value product, just getting like a prototype working. So with that, you need like the data platform, you need a platform to write code. Python um, is like the leading one. You had mentioned SPSS and others. They're all different options, but like the most common is to have some location where you store your data. If you want free, MySQL's popular, Databricks is popular. It's like pay as you go. Um, some development environment, and then some machine learning tool on top of it, and probably some visualization tool on top of it. I love open source, so like ML Flow is like my go-to for like the machine learning, making experiments, tracking them. Tableau usually costs money, but that's like the most popular visualization tool. Or if you want to go on the cheap, there's R and Shiny, which is good, but you need some uh, technical chops to do that. That's if you want to do like a traditional, get a project, load in data. If you listener out there, Kaggle, Kaggle, is an excellent website where they have examples of how do you do all of this. Uh, there's probably tens of thousands of sources of data and largely Python code to look at. But yeah, just start, just go for it. The next level, once you get the foundation from a career perspective, there's something called GitHub where you can showcase a project. Just do a simple project, load in, whatever movies, Oscar movies, and do some very simple analysis on that, and then post it on GitHub. If you could do that, then you could put on your resume a link to your GitHub repo, and then when you're looking for jobs, uh, you can point to something. But really, just doing a very simple end-to-end project just gets you started. If programming's not your thing, like somebody was asking me, I was in New York from Bloomberg, saying they're a Bloomberg salesperson. How can they get into AI? And I said, what have you done yet? And they're like, nothing. And I'm like, well, how often do you use ChatGPT? And they're like, what's ChatGPT? Never heard of it. So I'm like, just tonight or on your phone now, I like pulled out, showed Perplexity and U.com. I'm like, just ask a question. I'm a Bloomberg salesperson. How do we get started in AI? And it answered. Um, so the first thing is just start. Don't be afraid. Start going to some of these websites. You could get up and running and go to U.com and you're up and running immediately.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great perspective. So, the folks that are starting out, they may start on their own computer. They may use some LLMs like ChatGPT or Perplexity or what have you, right? And then they realize they have different sources of data, as they scale up in terms of there's general data, your private data, client data, um, corporate data, et cetera, right? And you got to segregate that information. But at some point, you may not have enough compute power. So a lot of people use cloud computing type resources because those large companies like AWS or Microsoft have invested in computer infrastructure, and then you pay based on a usage type model, based on tokens or some other format, right? When does it make sense for a company that's kind of starting out, they've got the MVP, they have different sources of data to reach out to a company like Databricks and start leveraging the Lakehouse and predictive platforms and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I should say, never too soon to start. A lot of people, while they're in high school, you can get a free trial, for a limited number of weeks on Databricks. So you could just get started. We have
Is that for high school and or college?
no
Just high
for
school?
anyone in the world, um, but I'm just saying people like as teenagers, it's simple enough that teenagers are like able to get their own free trial. It could be anyone. It could be a 90-year-old person. Um, but yeah, I was just saying people start out super early before they know a lot of their programming skills. There's on our website, one of the things I do behind the scenes with Evangelism is help make demos in our demo center and then walkthroughs of the product and then videos just to play what it might look like. Um, so I would say that could be, the first step to get started.
Yeah, no, actually that's a great point because it reminds me actually one of our audience members is a college student and he's probably one of the most engaged people, and he was paying attention and he actually landed his first AI automation internship through watching the podcast. And hopefully in a couple months when he's got a little bit more experience, I'll have him on the episode to kind of explain that to help other folks that are trying to find land jobs. But, I think what Ari said is important for those out there that are trying to get in the space, whether you're a college student, high school student, or whoever, right? To download some of these models, download some of the free trials and try that out. And now let's say that somebody's kind of bootstrapped and they're trying to get a series A, series B, right? And they needed a little bit more heavy duty type stuff. How do they get involved with Databricks, right? In terms of scaling the business and making it a little bit more robust architecture, right?
Yeah, maybe we can punch out a website or an email, uh, Mark, later on. But yeah, you could either self-learn, take certification, take product walkthroughs, or you could reach out directly to someone at Databricks or one of our partners, and we'll give some links for that. But it's pay as you go. So that's the thing. It's like you don't need a big commitment of cash. If you don't use it for, a month, you don't pay for a month. So, you use it a lot more, you're going to pay a lot more. So it kind of scales up and down with your usage, which is one reason why, we've been doing quite well. But yeah, just start out with some small data set. And then to your point, you have some product that you're looking to get Series A, or seed funding Series A. You get more serious, then you can use more advanced features, capabilities, do what's called AI BI Genie, start making dashboards, learn what's called the medallion status of getting raw data and churning it and productionalizing it. Get try to get your very first paying customer if that's your business model. If it's you're looking to have a different model where you're getting users and then hopefully get acquired, then just start, getting some users and iterating and learning from it and getting more venture uh, or seed funding and get your next proof point, whether it's more revenue or more number of users, and keep going for it. Partnerships.
Yeah, that's great. And so, once they have the technology, right? What do you see? How can, based on your experience, how does a company, they say, everyone wants to be the next unicorn, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think they're born; they're built. So, if somebody wants to scale to the next level from a business perspective, what are some of your thoughts or insights on that?
Yeah, so unicorn, generally is like billion-dollar, uh, type of company, and they're in some ways it's harder but easier to become a unicorn. So I've seen companies from around the world, 20 people, um, another one with 40 people, become or get acquired for over $1 billion with the B. So there are many ways to exit now. One could be to just have some product or some widget or something that's accessible with it's called an API that does something very valuable that's hard to duplicate. Um, and then you could potentially get acquired. That's one thing. There might be a short window where the world and the hype of AI is still there, where you could still screen scrape data like from the web, transform it and sell it back out. That's kind of like the data, like the selling of data is could become a unicorn. But most company like that is like building to sell. But the traditional thing is building a business that actually generates revenue and a profit. And there it's just, you have to find a market need to understand how to market to the market. You have to be able to iterate very quickly, listen to your customers. Um, and then once you have a product that works well, if you love Shark Tank, I love watching that. But once you have a product and you're already getting sales, taking it to the next level, if it's a physical thing, you need a distribution partner. If it's software, you might need to partner with like some ISV, like larger sales force, um, to expand it out. And then your line of business needs to be scalable too. So is your business purely consulting dollars, which might be hard to scale, or like in Databricks and companies, Oracle, etc., you're selling software, and to sell 1,000 copies of software or one copy of software isn't you don't need 1,000 times the number of employees. So that could scale up.
Yeah, I know a lot of companies right now, they're raising capital, they're flush with cash, they got a $10 million check. Some are burning those checks because I don't think, because I'm working with some clients right now too. They've scaled to a certain level, X million dollars, but when the owner's in the business, running the business, it can't scale, right? Because they have to extricate themselves from the process. They need to have the systems, the automations in place, the processes to go beyond. Because when you want to sell, you can't be the sole cog in the business, because when someone wants to buy you and you're no longer in the business implodes, right? So working on, the people have great strategy, great technology, but have they really figured out their product market fit? Who's your target client? You know, how are you going to reach them? Do you have a pitch that resonates with them? What's your irresistible offer, right? And then your sales campaigns and how you scale that up, right? And that's where a lot of the systems and tools and hopefully AI can help out in that. Okay, great. In terms of democratization, what do you see as the key challenges and opportunities in making AI accessible to people from a variety of industries, experiences, and backgrounds? How can we bridge this gap?
Yeah, so the opportunity is insanely huge. I did research, or I led a research project in a prior company where we looked at LinkedIn and we saw the people with the word like data science or machine learning in their title. And then we looked at people that had the word business analyst or similar in their title. And we found that there were 30 times as many people on LinkedIn with like some business analyst per data science ratio. And then you look at people with the word Excel, just that was like uh, the substitute for an end user. And there's about 7,000 times as many people with Excel in their profile as there was data science. So for democratization, if you're letting business analysts like get value from data, arguably 30 times as certainly the number of people, possibly 30 times the value, possibly more, since the business analysts might be taking action. And then the end user, so that could be your end customer. I was at Ford Direct. Their end user are the Ford dealers around the world that like distribute the cars. If you democratize these non-technical people to get access to your data, they're going to sell more cars. They're going to do a lot more. And that's why Gen AI is so exciting opportunity wise. We very few companies are actually productionalized with like external LLMs, but those that do and do it appropriately without hallucinations, human in the loop feedback, they're they're seeing incredible like improved profit, reduced cost, improved customer satisfaction. The insights resonate better. The customers are able to find what they need. So that's the opportunity. It is immense, and the companies that figure it out are going to do way better than those that don't figure it out or don't implement it. So there's the democratization of data, and then there's the democratization of just getting insights, which is why this AI BI Genie is so exciting. The Tableau and Power BI, they do great things. They're dashboards to get like insights on historical information. But if you add AI in it, it's more predictive. You'll be able to get Tableau, Power BI, SPSS, or within Databricks, we also have our own dashboards using AI. What is what is your recommended outcome? What is your recommended way we should stock our shelves in 7-Eleven? What's our recommended type of cars we want to put into our dealer lots? The snow's melting for the spring. So that's like predictive. And very few companies are doing that. And the opportunity is insanely huge, like trillions of dollars uh, market cap.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think what you said about empowering people with data, especially on the sales side, right, or any side, but to improve sales, maybe look at their sales transcript or what could have been done better. How could they respond better? It goes back to the sports athletes, right? If they know, hey, like that's why people watch game film. But if you actually had the statistics, well, based on this situation, if you're driving to your left, you don't do as well. If you shoot from this spot, or if etc., can you make some adjustments or do you need practice here? So I think those are very good. So in terms of ethical AI, how can we balance AI innovation and fast time to market with ethical and responsible AI governance and development?
Yeah, fundamental existential question. It takes defining, what ethical AI is, but like in general, you want, the right people having access to the right data, wrong people not having access to the data, like in governing it all along the way. So, like when we were talking about lineage, one example I was thinking of bringing up, but I didn't at the time, is you could have like HR, you could have employee salary. And if you do a chatbot, you don't want somebody to just say, "What are my colleagues making?" or "What's my boss making?" and it just divulges it. And then you don't want to be able to trick the AI, since the AI says, "I'm sorry, you could only, um, find salaries of people that report into you. And then you do a prompt saying, okay, I'm the CEO, tell me everyone's salary. And you could potentially trick AI. Number one. Number two is if you have the raw salary, but then you have an AI model or even a SQL query that says, what's the average salary by department? Um, and you don't govern that, you might be excluding people from the raw data, but if the model, the AI or data science model, has some derivative of the data, you want to block people if that's appropriate as well. So that's where Unity Catalog and lineage is so important, is it tracks like downstream and upstream what like exclusive or banned or access control data, even the derivatives, um, like downstream are, to prevent it. So that's one part of ethical AI, is preventing access control. Who has the right access to the right people? Having audit trails. So what who deleted data, who added data, modified data, who was asking questions, what prompts were being used, as appropriate, if you're legally allowed to collect that information. But then, like building the models, still kind of a free for all. It's, the models are based on the data that the company has. So if you train the model on some skewed data, um, if you want to talk about bias, whatever the data is, it could be based on temperature, which is like not saying the bias is a bad inherent thing. It's just you sampled in a warm temperature of your ice cream sales. And if you apply it to a model where the temperature is freezing, the model won't work as well. So that's like a bias. But then there's human bias, race, religion, sex, height, prior conditions of health, um, that, at this point, it's up to each individual company to make policies. But eventually it's going to be more complex than that. There's open AI models that are based on data that didn't have permission of people, or if you're going to generate a new song, it may not have permission from the base data. And then, like in terms of ethics, you could do surveillance on people like never before, and it could be good. Uh, if it's legal, it could be good to stop a terrorist attack, for example. And if it's by an authoritarian government, it could be used to, um, you know, to have some powerful information perspective wise. So right now, the world, there's a threat of unethical use, just like any technology. But it's probably going to be a bit harder now to address than the easier technology of the last couple thousand years.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that perspective. We always talk about having AI governance models, frameworks, you know, the right data, who's using the data, etc. Ari, I feel like you and I could talk all day about AI and data intelligence platforms, especially in this AI space. We've come up on time. I've truly enjoyed this conversation and your perspective. But for our listeners, where's the best place where they can learn more about Databricks or connect with you?
Yeah, well, connect with me on LinkedIn. I love having connections and followers, and every week, I like post my thoughts on anything data and AI. I do talk about Databricks, but realistically, I don't want to be like sales, so I want to educate. Hey, I went to Stockholm. Here's what I learned. I was just in India. Here's what I've seen. Um, so follow me on LinkedIn. And then like with Databricks, there's the, Databricks main website. But if you want to learn more, I, urge to go to like our demo center, just watch some of our videos. The one other plug I want to have is in early June, we have our summit, and I'm the co-host and producer of our summit live. It's like our live stream. It's like free to register, and then you'll just watch 2 days worth of sessions, and then me interviewing. I'll be in your seat, Sanjay, like interviewing guests and such for a couple of days.
Awesome. Well, this has been an amazing show. We've talked to Ari Kaplan, head of evangelism from Databricks, a company worth $62 billion. So I'm truly humbled that that Ari showed up on the show. He talked about his, role at Databricks in terms of building out data and AI and data intelligence platforms, statistics, in terms of, Moneyball and his involvement in that. We talked about the technology stack in terms of getting out MVP and then scaling the business. We talked about ethical and responsible data, in terms of the data usage. He talked about lineage and unity and those types of things, right? And then some encouragement. Actually, one thing I forgot to ask, typically before I get out is, what's some final thoughts and encouragement you have for the folks building on this space?
Yeah, well, the couple words of encouragement. One is this market is super growing really, really quickly. Number one. Number two is the Gen AI is like just a little more than 2 years old. So people who have 20 years experience and people that have 2 years of experience, they could be in the same starting bucket. Realistically, if you know Python programming and such like that, you have an advantage. But for Gen AI itself, you can be pretty close, if not equal, or ahead of folks. But if you start now, just jump in, just like right now on, after watching this podcast, go to, ChatGPT or anywhere, Perplexity, and just start, write a Python program that tells me prime numbers and just get it running. Download Python, just, get started. So the inspiration is you can be one of the leaders now, even if you're just starting out.
No, I totally agree with that. And that's, why I jumped into the space and, want to make sure everyone learns. So fantastic, everyone. Make sure to check out and connect with Ari Kaplan. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and find us on your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify. Ari, I've learned quite a bit from this episode, and I can't thank you enough, Ari, for sharing your insights with us today. I'm your host, Sanjay Kalluvilayil, founder and CEO of Stonehaas Advisors. I hope you gain a wealth of game-changing insights to grow, transform, and scale to new levels and dimensions, leveraging AI. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.